11,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers built a temple bigger than Stonehenge. Then they buried it on purpose. I'll show you why archaeologists call this site the most disturbing discovery of the century, and what was found carved beneath stone 43 that rewrites human history. In the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey, near the city of Şanlıurfa, there is a low mound called Göbekli Tepe. For thousands of years, local farmers plowed around it, occasionally cursing the strange flat stones that broke their tools. They had no idea they were walking over the oldest known temple on Earth, a temple built 6,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, a temple older than writing, older than pottery, older than the wheel, older even than agriculture itself. And that last fact is what keeps archaeologists awake at night. The site was first noted in a 1963 survey by Istanbul University and the University of Chicago. Researchers saw the broken limestone fragments scattered across the hill and assumed it was a medieval cemetery. They moved on. The mound waited another 30 years. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt arrived. He had read the old survey notes, and something about the description nagged at him. Within minutes of walking the hilltop, Schmidt knew these were not medieval gravestones. These were the tops of massive prehistoric pillars, T-shaped monoliths poking just above the soil. He later said that on that day he had a choice: walk away or spend the rest of his life digging. He chose to dig. He never left. What Schmidt and his team uncovered over the following decades shattered the standard timeline of civilization. Buried beneath the hill were enormous circular enclosures, ringed by limestone pillars up to 5.5 meters tall and weighing as much as 10 tons each. The pillars were not crude. They were finely carved, with stylized arms folding across their bodies, belts, loincloths, and a parade of animals in deep relief. Foxes, vultures, scorpions, snakes, boars, lions, creatures that bite, sting, and tear. The imagery is not peaceful. It is menacing, deliberate, and coded. Radiocarbon dating placed the oldest layers between 9600 and 9000 BCE. To understand what that means, you have to remember the world of that era. There were no cities, no farms, no domesticated animals beyond perhaps the dog. Humans lived in small mobile bands, hunting gazelle and gathering wild grains. According to every textbook written before Schmidt, such people were incapable of organized monumental architecture. They lacked the surplus food, the labor hierarchy, the engineering tradition. And yet here, on this hill, hundreds of them gathered to quarry, transport, and erect pillars heavier than school buses, without the wheel, without metal tools, without the structure of a state. This is the heart of the mystery. Conventional theory said that agriculture came first, then villages, then religion, then temples. Göbekli Tepe reverses the order. The temple came first, and the temple may have created agriculture. Schmidt proposed something radical. He argued that the need to feed the workers who gathered at Göbekli Tepe, perhaps for seasonal rituals or pilgrimages, forced surrounding populations to experiment with controlling wild grains. Within a few kilometers of the site lies the Karaka Dağ mountain range. Genetic studies have traced the origin of modern domesticated einkorn wheat to that very mountain. The world's first cultivated wheat was born within walking distance of the world's first temple. That is not a coincidence Schmidt was willing to ignore. In other words, religion may have invented farming, not the other way around. But the deeper you dig at Göbekli Tepe, the stranger it becomes. The pillars are not simply decorated. Many anthropologists now believe the T-shape itself represents a stylized human figure, faceless and watchful, with hands meeting at the navel. They are not gods being worshipped. They may be ancestors being remembered or summoned. Then there's Pillar 43, the so-called vulture stone. Carved into its surface is a scene that has provoked 20 years of furious debate. A vulture holds aloft a disc that resembles the sun. A headless human figure lies below. Scorpions, serpents, and other creatures crowd the panel. In 2017, researchers from the University of Edinburgh published a controversial paper arguing that the carvings encode a specific astronomical event, a comet impact around 10,950 BCE, the same date associated with the mysterious Younger Dryas cooling, a sudden climate disaster that nearly froze the planet back into an ice age. If they are right, Pillar 43 is not just art. It is the oldest known record of a catastrophe, carved by survivors who wanted future generations to remember the day the sky fell. Mainstream archaeology pushes back hard on that interpretation, but even the skeptics admit that something traumatic shaped the worldview of the builders. The iconography is obsessed with death, decapitation, and predatory animals. Excavators have found human skull fragments deliberately modified, drilled, and carved with grooves, possibly hung from cords as part of a previously unknown skull cult. These were not gentle farmers giving thanks for the harvest. These were people processing something dark. And then comes the final twist. Around 8000 BCE, after roughly 1,000 years of use, the builders did something inexplicable. They did not abandon Göbekli Tepe. They buried it, intentionally. They filled every enclosure to the brim with rubble, animal bones, and broken tools, sealing the pillars in place with surgical care. Tens of thousands of cubic meters of fill hauled by hand. It would have taken nearly as much effort to bury the temple as it had taken to build it. Why? Nobody knows. Some researchers think a new religion replaced the old one, and the ancestors had to be put to sleep. Others suspect the burial was protective, an attempt to hide something the builders feared or revered too much to leave exposed. Whatever the reason, the act preserved the site almost perfectly. The hill that we see today is not natural. It is a tomb for a temple. Klaus Schmidt died suddenly in 2014 before he could excavate even 10% of the complex. Ground-penetrating radar has since revealed at least 16 more enclosures still hidden beneath the soil. Larger, perhaps older, certainly unstudied. Each one is a sealed time capsule from a civilization that we did not know existed, built by people we were told could not have built it. Göbekli Tepe forces a question we are not ready to answer. If hunter-gatherers in 9600 BCE could organize, engineer, and encode astronomy into stone, then what else have we underestimated about the deep past? How much of human history happened before history began? And what exactly were they so desperate to bury? If this mystery rearranged something in your mind, subscribe to Mysteries of History. Every week we open another sealed door the textbooks tried to close. Hit the bell because the next civilization we resurrect might be the one nobody wanted you to find.